What color was that alleged first man of the Bible, where the God of the Bible breathed into dirt and created Adam, which is actually pronounced Adam? Now, if we're only going to look at this in the cycle of the day, of the Hebrew day, then the first man, you could say, well, would be maybe a dark-skinned man or a black man. However, that would make no sense because the actual text does not convey that Adam was a black man. So it conveys that Adam was a white man. Now, I had gotten into a discussion with a person about my Ilhan Omar video that I had made, wherein she was discussing that the United States is built on a system of oppression. And I had a person that said, the majority of North Africans are proud Muslims, so show how they are oppressing themselves. Now, that comment was made in regard to the fact that North Africa is indigenous white-skinned people. They're called the Amazigh. I put that in that video. And all of the religions of Abraham are oppressive religions. Just read the Old Testament, and then you look at what Christianity and then Islam did to each of the indigenous pagan peoples around the globe, around the northern hemisphere, specifically the Mound. Okay, all those pagan peoples were oppressed by those three religious cults of Abraham. So the Hebrew text comes right out and says that Adam, that's how you say it in Hebrew, was a white man. They had two ways to differentiate. We put this in our book, Northern Paganism, Exposing Abraham. Now, on page 38, when we're talking about the White Christ, as he was called in our Viking sagas, our Old Norse sagas, this figure Jesus was called the White Christ, and we explain that in this book. But we also say, as a matter of fact, the Arabs distinguished two races or skin color of men: white, with the ability to turn red or blush, ruddy, and black. The mythical first man of the Abrahamic text, Adam's name means white with the ability to blush or become red. Now, I'm going to set that aside right there. That word, Adam, comes from a root word of Adam. And that root word means, in that Hebrew Old Testament, 550 BC is the oldest we have, before the Common Era, that Adam means to show blood in the face, i.e., to flush or turn rosy. So we have this blushing, we have this turning red, a dyeing. As a matter of fact, the definition continues. It says to be dyed or made red, ruddy. That turning or dyed red, Adam, is the same word used in, and you can look these up, Exodus 25:5, Exodus 26:14, Exodus 35:7, Exodus 35:23, Exodus 36:19, Exodus 39:34, Proverbs 23:31, Isaiah 1:18, Lamentations 4:7, and Nahum 2:3. It is a turning red, a being dyed red, a blushing, not a black. So this person was arguing from the modern mindset that seeing North Africa has now been oppressed by a Muslim people, even though they're happy. I mean, you can make that same argument then against Ilhan Omar. She's saying that, well, North Africa is now Muslim and they're a happy people, then how are they oppressing themselves? Well, you can make that comment right back to Ilhan and say, well, America is a Christian nation that is a white-skinned people. How are they oppressing themselves? So you see, the argument doesn't fit, especially in light of those three religious cults of Abraham have oppressed people since their invention. Now, like I said, the oldest Hebrew text that we have in that thing called the Bible is 550 BCE. However, the Rig Veda, which is also included in this book, the Rig Veda is 1,000 years older than that, 1500 BCE, before the Common Era. And those Vedic texts are an Aryan text. They came down from the boreal region, that boreal forest, the far north, the boreal region of the globe. They're Aryan. The oldest language that is known to man, etymologists in the 1800s, we put this in our Northern Paganism Choices and Growth book, which is available in multitude of formats. You have and covers. You have the Kissing Under the Mistletoe, and you have the Northern Mountains view. That oldest language that is known to man, which we've sourced in that book, is the Gaelic language, and that is from 1800s etymologists. Okay, now when they determined that language was the oldest language, all of the language that are present today, every single language that we have today, including Hebrew, was taken into consideration. And they determined that the Gaelic language was the oldest language. Even the name of the continent, Africa. When we look at etymology of Africa, Africa is pretty much named for the area of Tunisia, which is North Africa. It later became applied to all of the whole Africa. And then even later than that, it became applied to black people of Africa when blacks were now over the whole continent, including North Africa, and the white people, the Amazigh people, had been oppressed. This continent called Africa is named after one region, far northern Africa, and that was originally Amazigh people, a white-skinned matriarchal people. Now that is important because all pre-Abrahamic cultures were matriarchal peoples, including the Amazigh. The Gaelic people, now when we look at that, the Gaelic people, we have the word Adam in the Bible. Adam is how you say his name. And it means, as we've put in Exposing Abraham, it means white with the ability to blush or turn red. And then I just read the other verses. Now, when we look to the Gaelic language, we have a word and that is either a yow or a dow, because the DH can be said with a D, with the H silent, or it can be said with a Y, like in the word you. And the MH can be either pronounced as a V, or the oo sound. So automatically we see where the Hebrews got their word, coming from the oldest language known to man. It is from Gaelic, and it is a dow. Now, this means the blessed person. Well, that would be, according to the Hebrew text, the blessed person. But it's deeper than that, because it comes from the northern pagan cycle of the year. We also see glorious, noble, illustrious, excellent, blessed, happy. That right there starts to zero us in. The reason that this is from northern paganism is because of the northern pagan cycle of the year. The northern pagan year starts in the spring, vor. It's called förår, and that's contracted to vor in Swedish. That northern pagan year begins in the spring when there's joy, because the three giantess maidens of the Fimbulwinter have passed, and now rebirth is taking place. Joy, exactly what we see in this Adau's name in Gaelic. This joyous time being brought in. So then what we see, we go through this time of light, the color of the figure Adam. He's not a literal person. He is an invention based on older pagan beliefs. Remember, systems of oppression. So we have this white daylight figure called Adam that exists. And what happens in the northern regions as we approached Samhain? Notice the Samhain, the Samhain of that word, the same as Adam. So things start to turn colors. The sky, when Balder is bleeding, turns red. So we have a turning red. The leaves on the trees start to turn oranges and red. So the same thing that we see in the northern pagan cycle of the year, a white to red, is exactly what they relate with Adam. Then we have what happens in those texts of the Bible, those Old Testament texts. They say Adam is put to sleep. Oh, a time of darkness. He's put to sleep. And when he awakens, now this Lilith comes into play here. I'm not going to get into that because I've addressed that in a previous video. But then when he awakens, a woman is taken from his side, and she is the mother of all living, called Eve in those texts, Eve. The mother of all living, again, is the beginning of the year, after Adam wakes up from his sleep, the winter time. So you see, Adam in the Bible is not a literal figure where he would have a color. Adam is an invention. He is a plagiarism and a corruption from matriarchal paganism. And matriarchal paganism always begins their year in the spring, the furor, which is what the Amaziah people would have done. The matriarchal people, they start the year at mother's time, so therefore the first man would be white, then turn red, then go to sleep, and then wake up at mother's time when everything becomes living again, Eve. So even the word for woman is ishka, water. When water flows, when water breaks in the woman, giving birth, when the waters of the north open up and release the snow melts and the ice melts from the high peaks. Adam is not literal, so therefore Adam cannot be a literal color. He is modeled after the turning red, the white of summer turning red, and then goes to sleep. That is all Adam is. To argue about he's a black man because modern Muslim scholars say, well, he is this or he is that. That's I'm not getting into what modern Christians, modern etymologists, there's modern etymologists out there that are saying the Jewish language, the Hebrew language is the oldest language. They're regurgitating facts to be in their favor. They're taking facts and they're regurgitating them all chewed up, and then they spit them out into something different that is not factual. It's just a modification to give themselves the upper hand, where they say, well, we realize this has already been determined, but no, Muslim scholars say Adam, the non-literal figure, was actually a black man, even though it doesn't fit the text. Any of it, including all those examples about turning red, doesn't fit what nature shows us. And the Hebrews say that the Hebrew language is the oldest language, even though that was one of the languages already considered back when they said that the Gaelic language is the oldest language. So that is Adam in the Bible. He's a non-literal invention by a new religion called Judaism or Hebrew that then resulted in two brother religions of Christianity with a white Christ and Muslim, and it's makes a mockery of what our ancient folkish pagans actually believed and they actually were, because our ancestors of folkish paganism, northern paganism, were not an oppressive people. That comes from those three cults of Abraham: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They can try to justify it by being happy all they want. They can try to say that, well, they're chosen or they're God's elect or whatever, which is what each one of them say about their own people. And they use their own texts to do it. And that is all they use. They've defined boundaries and borders of nations according to their own texts. You can say you're happy now because it's all under this system of oppression, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's still a system of oppression, and your whole entire ideology is built off a myth. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Like, comment, share, but only comment if you have something of intellect to add.